Coming up on this one, we're talking to a man who survived and thrived in the world's toughest military-style training available to civilians. In just a moment, we'll meet Brad Ritter, a leading expert on human performance and how adversity helps men unlock their full potential. Hey guys, welcome back to the Men to Mastery podcast. I am your host and founder, Michael Bullock. On this show, we deep dive with experts from various domains to learn how they handle challenges, hurdles, failures, and apply that to better themselves, their family, their relationships, and their businesses. Speaking of which, it's been a bit since we got one of these episodes out in your hands. And for a number of months, the reason is I've been formalizing my business owner and executive coaching that extends from what I do in the corporate consulting world. I combine 3 decades of C-suite experience with the tactical precision, teamwork, and leadership I've learned from guests here on the show and in the grit of real-world training from the same kind of guys. Ultimately, it's about your next level business success, not only growing your profit, but your freedom, fulfillment, life, and health. And in doing that, I've found the 3 most important areas of any business that needs focus to realize all those things: growth, profit, fulfillment, freedom, health, all of it, not just some, but the full equation. I've been doing this stuff a long time, and it's just a blast to bring that kind of impact to a business, to a man, to a family, to a person. So if that may serve you and where you're at right now, go hit the website. It's a new site at mastery.coach, and let's set up a call, www.mastery.coach. And if you're watching this one on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications. Okay, let's get into it with Brad Ritter. He's the author of the best-selling book, School of Grit, Unlock Your Potential Through Purposeful Adversity. After graduating Kokoro camp in 2015, Brad wanted to find a way to serve others, help people take control of their lives, and get unstuck. He does that through a proven system that focuses on your physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and warrior spirit. Over there at School of Grit, his mission is to build a warrior class community, and that's why he created School of Grit. And as you may know, Kokoro Camp is that training I was referring to earlier. In fact, the latest class just took place here last weekend in Southern California, where a small handful of men and women had the courage to show up, put themselves out there way outside their comfort zones, much like Brad did 8 years ago, and undertake that adversity by design, that engineered chaos that no matter what will leave them changed forever. All right. Today I have Brad Ritter, founder of the School of Grit, which he created after graduating from the SEAL Fit crucible called Kokoro. It's an infamous training, which is renowned to be the toughest civilian training in the world. Brad's also the author of book by the same name, School of Grit, subtitled Unlock Your Potential Through Purposeful Adversity. I know he's also a husband, a father, an entrepreneur. Brad, psyched to have you on today. I appreciate it so much. Welcome.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one, Michael. Thank you.
I have too. Hey, let me just dive right in. The subtitle, and I read the book. I loved it. Really, there's a ton we could take away here, but I got some stuff I really want to dive into today. What do you mean by purposeful adversity?
Yeah, so adversity comes in many forms. A lot of times we can't help it. Adversity is just going to kind of punch us in the face sometimes, whether that's, unfortunately like a death in the family, cancer, disease, Mother Nature being crazy. What I'm really talking about here is stuff you can invite into your life that's hard, but it's going to make you better in the end. So an example of that could be public speaking. A lot of people are very scared of speaking publicly in front of a bunch of people, but it's good for you. And the more you do it, the better off you are. So that's kind of where I'm going with that, is just as I look at the culture and kind of the generation we're in, we're in the most comfortable generation probably ever. And it's a little too easy at times, a little too comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay, cool. So adversity sort of by design versus by circumstance.
By design. And what you'll find, I think, is the more you invite purposeful adversity into your life, you're going to be able to train yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, so that when unfortunately an event happens that's completely out of your control. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think you're going to tackle it and have a little bit of an easier time with it if you got some sort of foundation built up.
Yeah, definitely. My son and I do Spartan races together, and I saw a little clip from founder Joe DeSena of Spartan Race the other day, kind of speaking to the same thing. He goes, I had all these years of training of getting kind of metaphorically punched in the face, and then got punched in the face 350,000 times during COVID with this business. And if I hadn't sort of trained myself that way, I wouldn't have survived.
Exactly. How old's your son, man? That's so cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to mention he's just about to turn 15, so he's now crossing over into the adult category. He ran kids races for a number of years and crushed that. So now it's his chance to go into the 14 to 17 sort of first tranche of adult racers. And you and I were talking a little bit off air about Seal Fit Crucibles. You've obviously done the Big Daddy that we're going to talk about. I did a mini one, but I was anxiously looking at their website the other day to find out how soon I could take my son to one of those. He's in that comfort generation. I think I think it's 16 before I can get him out to a 6 or a 12-hour Seal Fit.
It'll be so good for him. I wish I would have had that at 16. Are you kidding me?
I know. Ton of fun. Well, how did you prep for this thing? I mean, for people that may not know about Kokoro, this is a 50+ hour, it's, to the outside world looking in, physical crucible. Obviously it starts to peel back a lot more than that, but it is very, very physically demanding for more than 48 hours. So how do you physically, as well as mentally and emotionally, prepare for something like that? What did your training schedule and on-ramp look like?
Yeah. So when I first signed up for it, I was working out, let's say, but I wasn't doing the volume necessary that would require you to just be up on your feet basically for 50 hours plus, doing every calisthenic imaginable and all the other evolutions and stuff they throw at you. So I pretty much dedicated my life for about 6 months and was working out 6 days a week. Sunday was typically recovery day, but I mean, those 6 days, I was pretty regimented, man. I would work out 2-3 hours a day. Sometimes that was all together if I could carve that much time out. A lot of times though, I had to split it up and kind of do an hour or two in the morning and the rest in the evening. So I would equate it probably to those folks who have done a triathlon and have trained for that. Similar training in regards to the amount of time you spend, right, is what I'd say.
Different type of training.
But it was gnarly. I mean, I was talking to Mark Devine, the founder of it, shortly after I had secured it, and he's like, "Dude, you pretty much did this totally ass backwards. Like usually you go, experience the 6 hour, then the 12, and then you work your way up." And I just went in with both feet blindly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think I know you mentioned a lot of people in sort of the epilogue of the book, and one of those is Coach Jim Bro. And one of his books is sort of about his experience with Kokoro. I think he mentioned something similar, sort of 2 to 3 hours a day, and then a long day, might be a 6-hour ruck or something on a Saturday. I mean, that's a ton of time, especially I think he mentions that when he was training, his kids were grown and he was overseas for work. So he wasn't really cutting into the family time. How did that look for you? I mean, this is back in 2015, but what did that look like in terms of getting your family to buy into the process for you and why you were supporting you through the training?
Yeah, great question. So it felt very selfish because of how much time I was like, I knew why I was doing it. Ultimately it's for me to make me a better version, whether that's, husband, father, brother, friend, whatever. But sometimes when you're trying to convey that to your spouse or other ones, the words they aren't there. Right. But deep down, like, I got to do this for me. Like something about it, can't explain it. I know something's going to happen there. And she supported me after a couple weeks of letting that sit and knowing that, hey, this wasn't just like half marathon I'm signing up for or something like that. This is, you're going to be put into harm's way a little bit in a controlled environment. But I told her, like, mentally, this is the part that really got her. I literally told her, you won't hear from me. If you hear from me, like something bad happened, like I'm going to have to literally die out there, or they're going to have to kick me out, because there's no way I'm quitting. Like, I went out there with that mentality. And that was one of the first times that was probably the first time in my life, looking back, that I jumped in with both feet on anything, whether that was a job, you name it. I mean, completely committed to it. I guess other than the relationship with my wife and kids, I guess, that's definitely in there. But other than that, other than family, like as far as something I signed up for, that was it, man. I ate, slept, and breathed it and thought about it all the time.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like you'd have to. So we're talking about the shirt you got hanging from the event in the background.
Hmm.
I mentioned, so I went and did this. It's a 75-hour event, but it is not 75 hours of physical. It's ramps up and down. There's classroom time. There's self-defense, other stuff. So it's demanding in a variety of kind of by design different ways. And I know, so going into it, my wife was aware that one gentleman had passed away at the event in the past, right? So that was kind of lingering there. Like, it is physically demanding enough that there is, you're in harm's way. There is a risk, and went black for 75 plus hours. Although they stream some social media updates, so kind of modern world, you get glimpses of people. Oh yeah, he's still there. He's in one piece,
Still going.
Although she loves to joke around when I go do this stuff, whether it's an ultra or some kind of crucible event. She's like, "Why do you pay for these things and travel to go do them? Like, just give me the money and a hose and something to beat you with, and we'll do it in the backyard."
I get it, man. My wife doesn't quite understand it either, and they have hosed me down. In fact, on the drive and whatnot, that was part of my training. You asked about training. No kidding. I would go out there and the middle of the summer, when I live in Indiana, so it gets super humid usually, and I'd be out there working out, and they're hosing me in the face and yelling at me, trying to simulate that. Absolutely.
I love it. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you, I'm not sure if you sort of explicitly spoke to this as you wrapped up the story in the book. I think you mentioned coming into it, and we talked a little bit offline, I think, or you might have said it on air, that the same information didn't exist, the same communities didn't exist around these kind of events back when you went through it and you jumped in with both feet. But I think you mentioned that you started some training regimens that you bought, I think, online from one of the coaches that was there, Coach McLeod.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was there live at your Crucible event. You kind of mentioned like a bit of a nod or a smile or this or that through the event. How did it wrap up? Did you guys have a debrief or anything from him after you secured?
From Coach McLeod?
Yeah,
we shared a beer. I snapped a picture. Actually, I have it on my other wall. You can't see it, so I still keep in touch with him because, funny story. This is about how social media can get you in trouble. Because like I said, back then, I mean, there were probably groups and communities, but the SEAL Fit community and the Unbeatable Mind community, they weren't what they are now as far as how many people and how many cohorts and all that good stuff. So for your listeners out there, I had a Facebook account. I didn't post. I maybe had one post in like 5 years, that type thing. So I go out to California, which is where this event's at. I snap a picture of myself on the beach saying something like, "Yep, this is the last time I'm going to be taking in this view for the next, 50 hours or however long I go dark." And I send it, and I don't know what happens afterwards. Well, come to find out, Coach McLeod ends up knowing someone who had responded to that picture. She was someone that worked at a company that I used to work for and was in HR. And so it gets even better. Like, they went to senior prom together.
Holy cow.
Small world. They knew each other to that level. So I was basically a marked man from the second I stepped onto the grinder, so to speak. And like he literally comes, when someone's behind you, like, someone's behind you, you don't know who it is.
Right.
So he's behind me, I don't know it. And he's got this piece of paper and he puts it in front of me, and it's that Facebook interaction. And he's like, "Do you know me?" And I'm like, "No, sir." And he's like, "You're going to get extra sauce this weekend."
Extra sauce.
And I'm like, "Oh crap, man. I'm already messing up. Dude, I just got here. I don't even know what I'm like. This hasn't even started. I'm already marked."
I love it.
Mind games, man. Mind games. But yeah, he's a great dude. He's a great dude.
You just got extra money's worth out of everything.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I was there for.
Yeah. Why not get the full ride?
I want it all.
Tell me a little bit about the extreme sort of highs and lows that you went through. And I think one of the things you mentioned near the debrief is sort of an event like this, and those coaches are so good at finding weaknesses. And so through your story, you mentioned some of the weaknesses that became apparent for you to take home and work on. But just talk about some of the highs or lows, or kind of, the strengths aren't as fun as the weaknesses sometimes.
No, the weaknesses are fun, but I'll start with a high. Like the the high was, I mean, obviously at the end after securing, because we started with about 50 people, and man, I was one of the oldest there. I was 35 at the time. I had a little bit of gray hair. I got a lot more now, but they called me Grandpa out there. That was their nickname for me. So I was one of 25 though to make it. We lost half the crew, and just when Coach Vine said, you're secured Kokoro class 38, it was just, I mean, tears of joy, grown men. We didn't have any women in this class, unfortunately. It was all men, but yeah, just men just hugging each other, embracing each other. I mean, that was and still is the toughest thing I had done up until this point.
Usually you start off with a height line, and that ends up kind of being one of your first swim buddies. Did your swim buddy make it all the way through?
Yeah, he made it, Matt O'Kipney. Yeah, unfortunately, every once in a while, I mean, I might like text him once a year type thing. So I don't know what he's gone on to do. Unfortunately, I wish we would have kept in touch over the years. But yeah, I was height line, and that was the other thing. I'm 6'2", so I was in the taller group, the Clydesdales as they called us. So yeah,
heavy.
It was good. Heavy. Yeah, that was the one thing. Like we could carry heavy stuff. There's no doubt. Yeah. Right. So that was high point. Low point, there were so many. I don't even know where to begin, but I'm not a very good swimmer. I knew there would be some sort of water competency. Had no idea. I mean, I can swim to save my life, but as far as, being able to pull off the breaststroke or, no. Do I glide in the water? Hell no. I drag in the water. Yeah. And that just spends energy, man. So like the pool was definitely a low point. That was actually the only time I was ever in the goon squad that whole weekend, which the goon squad, for your listeners, is you don't want to be in the goon squad. That means you're not up to snuff. You're not keeping up with the rest of the pack, and you need a little extra remediation. So they pull you over to the side and they remediate you. So, but I was actually happy because I was so tired in the pool. I could never catch my breath. I mean, I'm drinking water half the time. And when they're like Ritter out of the pool, and I see this small little group that I didn't even know was over there, because I'm so focused on myself, and they're just doing, calisthenics. I'm like, "Hoo yeah, man, I'll go do as many push-ups as you want me to do. Are you kidding me? I just don't want to go back in that pool.
Out of the water.
Yeah, out of the water. Get me out of the water.
No doubt.
There's great equalizer.
Near the end of your story of the journey through those 50 plus hours, you guys are, so in this time, Mark and the SEAL Fit guys, they had a facility down in Encinitas, California, near the beach. So they used to kick off and finish up down there.
Badass facility too, man. It was awesome.
That place is awesome. So you guys, there's a place where you kind of get your PT gear back on, and don't even have time to put socks on. But you mentioned somewhere in there that you got to look at your feet, and that they were in good shape that far into the event. And you almost seemed a little bit surprised by that. And so I got a reason for the question, but was that something you had trouble with in the past, or why did it surprise you that your feet were good?
Yeah, I knew I would get hot spots from time to time on my feet. And that was the one thing that kind of scared me. I'm like, man, what if I get blisters all over my feet? And, that would make a tough experience that much tougher. So I paid particular attention to my feet and really experimented around with everything from, what lubrication might work on my feet, what type of socks. Do I wear one pair, two pair? I mean, these are little things, but gosh, do they add up through the course of being on your feet for over 50 hours.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, you got to take care of your feet to the extent you can. Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted to ask, I'll share a little story with you. So that event that I did, an earlier class of it, one of the guys I met. So I did that event in April, and it's up in Chino, California, right? So inland, it gets very hot there. So Andy Foe and these other guys, they went through, Todd Telkamp was in this class as well, if you know Todd from the Kokoro community. And this is middle of the summer. And one of the instructors is from New York. So just had no clue. And right away, he gets these guys down doing PT on the asphalt in the parking lot where they went to pick them up. So they're bear crawling around this parking lot. And, if it's 105 outside, this asphalt's going to be like 130. And a bunch of them ended up with, very severe burns on their hands. They had to get, the medic to tape up and try to treat at the beginning of this Crucible event. Right. But Andy's hands were completely fine. They weren't burned at all. And he attributes a lot of that to, we talk about, it's more than the physical, it's the mental and other things, that he's a tattoo artist and he's really tattooed up. And so he's got this whole routine of, where you focus is where kind of things manifest. And if you don't give attention to that pain, then your body won't react by creating inflammation and other things in those areas. And so he was able to kind of use that technique to take his mind off of what was going on with his hands, and they actually ended up in good shape.
That's awesome. We had a similar incident. It wasn't that hot, but it was, we had to, this was of course after eating at an all-you-can-eat pancake place. They did feed us and they took us, if you could believe this, picture 25 dudes rolling into a restaurant smelling like crap, dirty, tired. They've been up, however long on a Sunday morning. We roll into a private room. We had all you could eat pancakes. That was our breakfast. And then after eating and gorging ourselves, we had to do burpee broad jumps in the back alley, all the way back to headquarters. So my hands were cut up from all the broad jumps and the burpees. So
on the asphalt,
if the asphalt would have been 105, I don't know, that would have been pretty brutal.
Yeah, you describe him in the book as just being completely hamburger
hands. You got it, man. Yep.
So one of the things I want to ask you about, in a way, this is very much an individual event, but in a way, it's very much a team event, just like it's physical, but it's also other things. And one of the points that you make in the book, I think you even mention in Debrief with Coach Divine, sort of the ability to ask for help, and when pride can get in the way of asking for help, or maybe asking for help soon enough. So no big spoiler here, but you had a teammate who was in bad shape at one point, needed help carrying his pack, eventually accepted help. And it was too late.
Yeah,
eventually. It was too late at that point. He was already burned out. So, just all these events are a metaphor and training for life. Like you said, purposeful adversity to kind of train for other things. Where is that line? How do you know when to ask for help? And particularly an event like this, to use the event, the metaphor itself, where's the line between needing help, just not putting out enough effort, or you just didn't prepare for the event whatsoever as an individual?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually never been asked that before, so that's awesome. I think you only truly know. It's like that difference between an injury and a quinjury. They prompted us on that, which you're smiling, so I think you probably had the same prompt. Like, sure. Is it really an injury, or is it just a nagging thing that's going to make you quit because mentally you're just going to focus on it, and that's going to be your reason to get out of this because of all the pain you're in, But as soon as you quit, give yourself, 10 minutes, you're going to be like, damn, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I could have made it through. You know what I mean? There's a difference. And on the outside, I don't think you can tell. I think it's just that internal, we all got that internal chatter, that internal voice that we're listening to. And, if it keeps coming up like, hey, maybe I should ask for help. Maybe you should. So there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong for asking for help, especially at an event like that, because to your point, this is a team event. One person's not going to get through it. Rambo, although a great movie, is BS. Like, there's just not going to be this one man show. We need a team, and we're all in life. It is a metaphor because we're all on several teams, whether it's your family, work, whatever passion project you might have going on, sports. We're all parts of teams, and they all interact together, and together the sum's greater than the whole type of thing. So that was one of the big lessons I learned out there, because up until that point, I'd say I was fairly selfish. I mean, I just was. Even though I had kids and was married, like, I had trained, 3 hours a day forever. I know why I was doing it, but it still could be looked at as selfish. I'm away from my family, I'm away from my kids, spending time doing that, this me type stuff. And out there, you quickly learned you're not going to make it through unless the team really comes together and gels. And that's hard to do. A lot of people's egos get in the way because they don't want to, they look at it as a weakness to ask for help. And no, it's not a weakness. It's actually good. You should ask for help more. I generally think people like to help people. So not only is it good for you, it's also benefiting whoever you're asking, because it's like, cool, I get to help Michael out, that makes me feel good,
Right.
So
it's a service.
It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's service.
It's service. Yeah, I always kind of wondered that, particularly in an event like this, where the cadre is always looking, even when you don't think they are. And I know I talked to one of them that I want to ask you about, and his at the time his comment was, I even forget what the topic was, but it's like, you just do the standard. That was it. Do the standard.
Do the standard.
So that comment came from another gentleman you mentioned in your book, unfortunately lost to the community and the world last year. Master Chief Mark Crampton, Cramps.
Cramps. Yeah.
Yeah, great,
Cramps.
great dude. I had coffee with him when I came back from this 75-hour event I
Oh
did,
man.
what that I would call a crucible. And I was excited to kind of debrief it with him, and he was like, "So how'd your challenge go?" My challenge.
I can see him saying that too, man. I'm so fortunate to have worked with him, because I went back to Kokoro camp last summer.
Nice.
and actually worked it as I was basically helping the cadre, which
Mm-hmm.
he was the lead cadre for the evening shift. So whatever he wanted, I mean, whether it was coffee, like I didn't care. I was there to help him out. What a great dude. What a great dude. Lost way too soon. Just you come across certain people, and you spend even just a little bit of time with them, and you're like, man, that's a dude. I would literally run through a brick wall for him, if he was my leader, and
Right.
it was such a joy and such a pleasure to get to work with him. And I tell you what, I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
I haven't told a lot of people. And so we're out there. It's summer, as you mentioned. It's hot. Okay. And I'm on the night crew. So the day crew is supposed to sleep in these RVs. Well, of course, our AC is broken, and there's 5 dudes in there in this RV, and it is a hot sauna, man. It is a sweat lodge. Like, we know we have to sleep, but we're literally in our skivvies, and we're just sweating, just dripping. And Master Chief Cramps, he stops in on us to check. He's like, "What's going on?" And we're like, "Our AC is broken." And he's like, "I got to have you guys good to go for tonight." He's like, "Follow me." So we went into his RV. He cleared out space for us all, man. We had like, I don't know, 7, 8 dudes cramped in this little RV, but it had AC and it felt amazing. And I didn't care. But that's just the type of leader he was. It was the mission, the men, and then himself
Right.
at the end of the day. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't realize you got a chance to cadre with him. So that's an awesome story. Thank you. And I want to ask you also if you remember any stories of him if he cadred while you were going through it. Share a quick one kind of in return. So I think when he and so this was April of 2021 when I did that 75-hour event. So, came back and we debriefed probably early mid-May, something like that. And there had been a Kokoro, I want to say that March or so, March. So Vail Lake, inland Temecula, California, gets very, very hot in the summer, but it also can get very cold in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was like freezing rain that spring, or whatever you want to call March in. And so, like, if Brian Rail, chef,
chef. Yep.
he froze out of it, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people went down just, due to the extreme cold, that were already physically very prepared, but just not necessarily prepared for that exposure. And I remember asking Cramps, like, 2 things, like to do the standard guy, but also the guy that will, literally give the shirt off his back for you. I was asking him how he cadred that one. And he's like, I went and gathered up every jacket, every fleece, everything we could find. We rucked them to get them warm. He gave them every tool he could to try to get people warm and give them the chance to succeed. But I also remember asking him, I go, like, is there a special MRE that you guys would use, like when you went to cold weather training in the military, more fat or something like that, that'll keep your body warm in cold weather conditions? Did you guys switch out the MREs or anything for this event? And he's like, it's only 50 hours. Just get over it.
That's so true. I could see him saying that, man. And I know exactly that event, because Rich Peckham, who got the nickname Frodo from another cadre because he looks like Frodo Baggins.
Okay.
He made it through. So he was in that class. He made it through. But yeah, they only had like, I don't even know, 5 people make it through. It was so bad. They were part of that is, and it's no secret, but you hike Mount Palomar in the middle of the night. It's one of the evolutions. They couldn't do it because there was snow.
Oh,
there was snow up there. Yeah, that's how cold it was.
Holy cow. Yeah, it does get cold up there. How about when you were going through? Did you have any Cramps memories, or was he working that one?
So my cadre, the cadre I went through with, completely rolled over, man. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's anyone. Mark James, I think, was the only one from that original that I went through, because I went through with like Lance Cummings and Taco and bunch of dudes. So yeah,
a lot of guys that have moved on to other things.
Unfortunately, I didn't have cramps part of the cadre. I wish I would have. I mean, just a solid dude.
Yeah, I'll give you one more story from somebody else. I want to say this is, I don't know if you know Jim Kunkel, 57 is his nickname.
Yeah, I know Jim.
So when Jim went and finally did his Kokoro, which I think got pushed off by personal stuff, got pushed off by COVID. So cramps had worked that one. So he told me a cramp story. I think this is when they might have been hiking or might have been when they went down to the beach. And, he's also one of those guys that didn't have to scream. He wasn't the guy with the megaphone or the screamer, right?
Yep.
He gave him an order and the instruction was no talking. And there was still chatter. And he just said, "You guys are starting to piss me off." And that's all he said. That's all he said. But they went in the book and there definitely was a price to pay.
They're in the book. Yeah. You don't want to be in the book. That's definitely. Yeah. I know exactly that evolution. That was out on Mount Palomar. Yeah. It's the silent hike. And he leads that. I got to take part in that because I was in the night crew, and I drove the support. There's a support vehicle. You don't know it because I try to stay out. Headlights are off, but I'm way in the back picking up casualties is what we call them if someone has to drop or they get hurt or whatever. So, yep.
Yeah. How about kind of bringing all this together? And I know the book is coming off the event, which is a springboard for everything you're doing with School of Grit now. So I want to jump into that. But I think you say in the book, the event left you forever changed pretty much in every way, which may be obvious in itself. I guess the question I had on that is, where and when do you find yourself slipping? And
dude,
yeah. And what do you do to reel yourself in or stay accountable?
I love that question because sometimes we look at, big figures out there, like, your Jockos, your David Goggins or whoever, right? And you just think these people have perfect lives. They don't. I certainly don't. I mess up just like everybody else. I catch myself slipping. I'll give you a perfect example. Christmas break. It's had 2 weeks off. Company I work for, it was kind of a slower period. And then most of my clients were off, especially that last week. Right. My wife's a teacher. She's off for 2 weeks. Kids are home. So I work out of my house. So I'm used to having no one here. So my schedule is completely flipped. And I found myself sleeping in longer, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay. I mean, I do try to wake up early. I do wake up early, but if it's vacation or something, I'll sleep in a little bit. Sure. The sweets, man. I'm a sweet guy.
Oh yeah.
And with Christmas and like we were hosting, so my wife's a great cook. My problem is I only have so many willpower points throughout the day.
Right.
So at the end of the day, like if all these pastries and shit are right by me in the kitchen, like they're good, it's going down. I don't have those points anymore. Right. I don't like that willpower is gone. So I basically got to have it away from me. And I found myself sleeping in, eating too much sugary crap, and I wasn't working out like I normally do. And dude, I could feel it, man. I was just getting edgy. I felt it. I would snap a little bit easier, maybe at my kids or what have you. Cause hey, I'm not perfect and I'm willing, I'll be the first one to admit that. But I've at least practiced enough to where I can witness that and be like, oh yeah, I was kind of an ass there. Or I shouldn't have handled that. So if I do something like that, I apologize. And it's back to the routine for me. So, especially with start of the new year, right? New routine or New Year's resolutions. I'm not a big fan of that stuff, but I am a fan of doing a reset coming off of like a holiday in which you've hopefully experienced something like that. And I said hopefully because it's like, hey man, we all got to live. You got to have some fun. I don't regret it, but it's like I got to get back to what I want to do and how I feel better. And I feel better when I'm up early, going through a morning routine, working out, doing my day job, working on my passion projects, coaching. Like that's when I'm at my best, not just watching National Lampoons for the fifth time and eating cookies. I mean, I love that movie, but dude, I feel like a slob. Just don't feel good.
No doubt. How old are your kids?
My son just turned 9. He's a December baby. And then my daughter's getting ready to turn 12 here in a few weeks. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. You got some fun years ahead. People talk about how kids see everything, and maybe when they're younger, they kind of pick it up a little bit more intuitively, or maybe they they'll model it, but they don't necessarily understand it. My son, like I said, he's 14 going on 15. just in the last probably year or two, like he has just been sharp as a hawk. So you'll start
That's
to see
awesome.
this with your daughter, right? And I started slipping a little bit, probably sometime might have been during the New Year's break or something as well. I've been doing rounds of 75 hard
Mm-hmm. Yep.
with some other guys to kind of keep each other in check and just, really keep the daily routine polished. And part of that for me, also working from home and having a couple businesses, is getting up early, get the first workout of the day in early, get my mind and my body set. And my son's getting up around, I don't know, 6:15 for school. And there were a string of days where I wasn't getting up before he was. I wasn't getting up and getting it done. And he called me out. He's like, Dad, you've been sleeping in lately. And sleeping in might have been until 6:15, right?
Right.
But the point was, he got up and I wasn't already in the garage gym, getting it done. And he called me out on it. I was like, all right, he saw it. I already knew it, but time to fix it.
That's the best accountability partner right there, is like your spouse or your kids. I was kind of similar. So my wife and I have been waking up early together, usually around 5:20, and we'll either go for like just a 2-mile ruck, or we'll just hop on. I have exercise bikes I have a garage gym, and we'll just do some exercise bikes, and then we'll do like a little plank, 5-minute plank routinely, like clockwork. But with Christmas, all that went by the wayside. And it's funny, kids said something similar, like, what happened to you guys like doing stuff for the morning? And we're like, ooh, yeah, you're right. We should be. But everybody needs that though. Everybody needs someone to call BS on them or tell them, no, that's not such a good idea. We were talking about that before this call, like just having some sort of accountability partner. I know that's quite a popular buzz term, but just someone that's going to keep you honest. We all need it.
Yeah. So how much of that happens with School of Grit, or what does that community look like? Tell me about the coaching and the community.
Yeah, man. So we're a community for men, women. I like to say we're there for people that want to, better themselves. And I like to say we're developing a warrior class. That's what we're developing. I think everybody's got a little warrior in them. And what I mean by warrior is someone who can take care of themselves, someone who can take care of others, and then someone who knows their God-given purpose and are not afraid to go after it. That's it. That's what we work on together. And we span the globe. We talk about everything from nutrition to, of course, fitness. We have calls on that. We have calls on meditation, breath work. We have calls on situational awareness, self-defense. So, we span it all. And it's set up like a school. So this is all done over Zoom. It's virtual, small group. And most of our calls are on Tuesdays, Thursdays. And you attend the calls you can make. Don't attend the ones that don't interest you. And everything's recorded, so it's housed in a repository, but it's pretty sweet. I love it. And we have some just awesome guest speakers that come through every month and just learn so much. And then like the magic of it is kind of what happens offline. So we have a private Slack channel, and that's where people will ask questions, or maybe they've got an issue they're dealing with, and just seeing the tribe come together and work with each other is awesome. And then I host a couple calls too, where some people call it mastermind, some people call it hot seats, whatever. Hey, we're here. What are you having trouble with, or what's on your mind? And we all get together and kind of brainstorm and help each other out, man. It's so much fun. I love it.
Cool. No, that sounds super valuable. How much of it? I know you're also a certified Unbeatable Mind individual and group coach. So how much of it do you bring the Unbeatable Mind coaching and tools into it? How much of it is an extension of that with your own material?
Yeah, I think the youth stuff's like a good foundation, because I do really like the 5 mountains, the physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, warrior spirit thing. But then, we bring in other things like, growing grit and self-defense and, you name it. So try to round out everything. We do go into spiritual development too. So, hey, I believe in God, and we explore our relationship with that. And I just ask that everybody is open. And everybody is. Otherwise, they wouldn't be part of it. So
nice.
It's not for everybody. There's a selection process. So I interview everybody,
okay.
And there's a few things I'm looking for. But those are things for me to know, and you'll find out at the end where thumbs up or thumbs down.
Selection. I know one of the things you mentioned in the book is from the Unbeatable Mind catalog, if you will, or that foundation, the big four of mental toughness.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about how it showed up in Kokoro, or maybe more importantly, how it shows up in School of Grit or your life? And the one, I don't know if Jim Bro was kind of spinning this the same way back then, but in recent years, he also talks about the sort of unwritten, unspoken fifth one, which is focus on others,
Focus
right?
on others. Yeah.
The teammates or the service aspect to keep you going through tough times.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, so big four: mental toughness, breath control, positivity, visualization, goal setting. I mean, so here's the funny thing. When I told you I did it kind of ass backwards, I did, because when I signed up for Kokoro, I didn't know anything about Unbeatable Mind. I didn't know what all that's. I was just crushing the physical stuff. I learned all that stuff out there. And I'll give you an example. We were in like a van, and that was one of the very few times you had time just to sit and sort of reflect, except you're in a van, windows are up, heaters on full blast, and you're trying to keep yourself from not going to sleep. And one of the cadre noticed that somebody was doing some tactical breathing. And I thought, what's this person doing? Why are they breathing like that? And I'm like, oh, they're trying to, regulate their mind and all that. There might be something to that. So I really didn't get into that whole like self-development piece until after. That's what really opened up my eyes. And obviously I learned about focus on others out there, because as we talked about it very much is a team thing, but there's not a day that goes by I don't use the big four of mental toughness. And it really does start with your breath and just being able to I find that if you can, especially in stressful situations, if you can just find time to take a breath, you'll make a clear, more calculated decision instead of having a knee-jerk reaction. For all you parents out there, especially that have young kids, try it before you go off and cry about spilt milk or whatever. Like, just try taking a breath, be like, I'm gonna breathe here. Just that 1 second, man. Sometimes that's all you need.
Can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sometimes literally life or death.
And then visualization's huge. I mean, if you can't see it, you're probably not going to do it. So you really got to see yourself doing it, and that applies to anything, whether it's sports related. I mean, it's something I talk to my kids about, because we do martial arts together and we do Taekwondo. So I'll have them a lot of times close their eyes and perform the different pumses and forms and stuff. Cause it's like, you could see yourself doing it, like no big deal when you go to actual promotion and there's 100 people there and you're there, spotlight's on you, right? But you will have done it. You can access it at the subconscious level. It's no different than giving a big presentation, or entrepreneurs who are starting that business. See yourself being successful, see yourself growing, and how you'd interact with potential clients. And I mean, it's great. Also, you could take that the other way too. See yourself failing. I don't think there's that much of a problem with that either, because it's easy to see yourself win. But if you can think about those failure points and those bottlenecks, you can solve for them ahead of time. Like, ooh, maybe I need to shore this up. Yeah, I could fail there. So what could I put in place as a backstop, or how can I mitigate that?
Nice. Yeah, I last time I remember doing some tactical breathing before some public speaking. I went over to visit a client, had to speak to their board. It's televised, it's recorded, it's on a website somewhere now. There were 3 remote audiences and an audience in person, and I was going to get gas on the way there, and the back of my suit pants ripped open.
That's classic.
It's like not much I can do about it at this point. I hope the suit jacket covers most of it. Just breathe and let's go.
Just breathe and let's go through it.
Let's roll with it. Nice. How, I guess, just in terms of your foundation or your founding of School of Grit and all the work you're doing there, how, you mentioned purpose a few times. We talked about purposeful adversity to start. How did you know? So coming out of Kokoro, how did you know this was what was next for you, or what you were going to create, and the community you were going to build, how you were going to serve?
Man, I didn't. It actually haunted me for a while, because coming out of Kokoro camp, Mark Devine, he addressed our class and he asked a simple question, 2 words. He said, "What's next?" I'm like, "What's next? What do you mean, man? I just trained my ass off for this and secured it." But what he was referring to is, okay, you've done this. Now what are you going to do? Because it is fairly common. You see it a lot. Like, people will go after that first marathon, train, and then they quit running for whatever reason or what have you. And they move on to like the next shiny object.
Right.
And I like I said, it haunted me. I thought maybe doing more events could kind of cure that bug. And there's lots of great events out there, and I've done a few. But it didn't come close to that experience that I had at Kokoro camp. And I thought, well, what was it about that? And I started writing down an outline of everything I went through, and service to others came up, and I'm like, that's it, man. I got to find a way to serve others. I want others to experience what I'm experiencing at Kokoro camp without having to go through 50 hours of the beat down. Unless they want to, then by all means, go for it. But let's face it, not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody can do that.
Right.
So long story short, Mark's got podcasts, the Unbeatable Mind podcast. I was listening to it. He had a dude on by the name of Larry Hagner. Larry runs a podcast called the Dad's Edge Alliance. And during that episode, I'll never forget it, because I was driving home from work, and Larry was talking about how to come home as a dad, taking that uniform off and being able to compartmentalize your job, leaving it at the doorstep, and then, walking through being that dad, being that husband. I struggled with that for a while. And you ever listen to a podcast, you're like, man, this is talking to me. Like, it's
right.
Yeah, that was it at that time. So I reached out to Larry, and long story short, had dinner with him. Dinner lasted 3 hours. He was a big fan of Mark. Couldn't believe I had gone through Kokoro camp, was very interested. And he was talking to me about his vision. This was 5, 6 years, probably 6 years ago. His vision was to have this group called the Dad's Edge Alliance, and kind of like a membership type site. And he was going to need coaches to handle the amount of clients that hopefully would be poured in from the podcast. And I was like, man, that's it. I raised my hand. I said, dude, I'll be your first coach. He's like, I'm wanting to find a way to serve others. Like, let's do it. So I became his first head coach.
Nice.
And I coached men. It was men only group. I did that for 5 years. My call team was Fight Club.
Fight Club.
We met on Fridays at 10 o'clock Eastern. So shout out to any Fight Club members out there that might be listening. So
nice.
That's really how I got my start, and then fell in love with it. Just fell in love with the coaching. I was sold on what having a conversation like this over Zoom, what that can do. And I thought, this is it, man. More people need this. And then I had been working on my book too, and launched the book. And random people like you, like, they just, hey, I read your book, man. It was awesome. I'm like, really? They're like, what'd you like? And they're like, well, and they tell me the specifics, and I'm like, okay, there's something here. Like, I need to take this somewhere. And I thought, okay, I try to look for patterns in life. And I thought, here's the pattern. I got the book. I've done coaching. I need to do my own coaching group, School of Grit Tribe. That's how School of Grit Tribe was born, man. And yeah, I love it. I do. I feel like I'm actually doing, what God's plan was for me. Because one of the, I don't want to mess this up. Someone told me, can't remember who said this. Doesn't matter. You guys can look it up. But the definition of hell is on your deathbed, meeting the version of yourself that you could have become. Or like I've also heard it referenced as, like, you go up the heavenly gates, and they're reading, everything you've done throughout life, and this person's just done amazing things, right? And they're like, and you're like, who are they talking about? That's you. If you would have done XYZ and had the courage to put yourself out there and fail, man, fail. Failure's a good thing. We need to embrace that. Gosh, we need to embrace that so much. Some people they strive for perfection, and that's just not real. Just get out there and mess stuff up, man.
100%. Hey,
yeah.
I know that story for sure.
Yeah. So it's just been a long road, dude. But I've kept my ear, down, and I believe in the power of putting positivity out there, and it will come back to you at some point. I don't do it because of that, but mark my words, it will. And just, I have a mentor of mine, Vincent Puglisi, he calls it the hour of giving. I don't do it for an hour, but he spends every morning contacting people. Hey, how's your day? Was thinking about you today. Wow. How many times have you had that where you're like, man, I wonder how so-and-so's doing. I should contact them, but you don't.
Right.
Now I don't mess around. If I have that thought, I immediately text them, like, hey, was thinking about you today. Hope all's good. And you wouldn't believe how many people respond back, dude, I was thinking about you too. Or, man, I really appreciated that. I was having a shitty day, And
so if it pops up for you, you just reach out.
I go with it. That's the intuition piece, right? Yeah, I go with it. I'm heavy in intuition now, because now that I've aligned with my purpose, I'm clear on my principles and my passion.
Right.
Now my intuition's working in overdrive, man. I feel it's like, so if I really feel it, or if I start dreaming about it, I'm like, all right, someone's telling me to do this. And like obviously I believe in God. I've raised that several times. So I believe it's God's telling me to do this. So I'm going to go down that path. But for you and your listeners, if you know, whatever that higher being is, or whatever you believe in, whatever that voice is, man, go for it.
Right.
Go
Or
for it.
ignore it at your own peril.
Or ignore it at your own peril. Now, I have to caution you, if you're one of those people where your intuition leads you down the wrong path multiple times, that does happen. It's like that episode in Seinfeld where George, what was it, opposite day or whatever? I don't know if you watch Seinfeld, but he basically does the opposite of everything. And,
Yep.
you know, like that could work, I guess. But like, we need to take some steps back and really we need to peel back that onion and see why.
Right. Yeah. Maybe the antenna's off a little bit.
The antenna could be off a little bit, and there could be reasons for that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing. Congratulations on the book. You know, the book itself, obviously, no joke. The crucible of getting your thoughts on paper and getting that out there. I know that's super valuable. Just on that note, I forgot to ask you off air, so I don't want to put you on the spot here, but are you still doing ebook versions of that for anybody?
Yeah. Still ebook versions for sure. Absolutely. And yeah, it's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all that good stuff. Yep.
Right.
And then also too, I'm doing 30-day free trial too. So if anyone's interested in the coaching program, try it on for 30 days.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I definitely want to wrap up on that point. So 30 days, awesome School of Grit coaching tribe. How does that line up with the selection process? Have the intro call with you, and then if everything's well, you roll into the trial period?
Yep. Have the intro call with me. So my email's brad@schoolofgrit.org, not .com, .org. I'm not going to pay for the domain, at least not yet. So just send me an email, say you're interested. We'll set up a call, and probably take 30 minutes, but just see if it's going to be the right fit. And if it is, we'll get you onboarded.
That's a Zoom call with a PT test?
Yeah, Zoom call. PT test is optional. We won't do that yet, but I you know what? Maybe I should though. That'd be pretty sweet.
At least, you know, get the reaction. The reaction itself could be telling.
That's right.
Just do the whole interview in a plank.
You know, that probably could. I probably could. Yeah.
I tried to implement that.
Yeah,
I had a small team at a company couple stops ago, and there were just three of us, and I said, you know what, we need to make these shorter. Let's do plank based meetings. So we're only gonna meet as long as we can plank.
I mean, you get to the real matter pretty quickly, right? Right. Instead of all the pleasantries and stuff. Like, let's get to what's the real reason we're on? Let's chop this 30 minutes down to like 4.
Get right to it.
Yeah, I love that idea.
So schoolofgrit.org and Brad we'll get links up to all this stuff in the show notes. I know you mentioned social media and it got you in trouble back in 2015, I think, when you went through, was it 2015 you went through Kokoro?
Yeah, 2015. Yep.
But are you on social media now? Where can people follow you and find you other than the website?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So just check out School of Grit and you'll find me there. So
all right, we'll get you links up to all that stuff too. And of course the book, as you said, I got it off Amazon, anywhere books are sold. Brad, again, congratulations on the book and your tribe and what you're doing for yourself, your family, the business, the world. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I thank you for coming on.
Likewise, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for telling your story. Keep at it. And hopefully book number 2, we'll get you back.
Oh man, you just scared me there. Book number 2, but absolutely, I'll come back if I got book
all right,
number 2.
Lean into it.
All right, thanks, brother.
Thanks.
Okay, that was episode 118 with Brad Ritter. You can of course find the show and the show notes at men2mastery.com/118. That'll get you links to schoolofgrit.org and all of Brad's social. So make sure you go check it out, what he's doing to build that warrior class community over there. I know a few of them personally, and they're just top quality people. Okay, and as a reminder, on the coaching side of things, go check out the new site at mastery.coach, www.mastery.coach, if that can be of service to you. All right, let's get out there and crush the rest of the week, guys. Go get after it.